Welcome to Documentaries with Richie 150. The life of a tetra. This little tetra decides to eat little bugs that swim near the surface. Its colorful coloration shows that of a beautiful fish with a derpy little face. The tetra itself swims in search of prey. Sadly, small prey is hard to find when you have over 1,000 tetras in the same Shrek swamp. But, luckily for them, they can always find it. But what is this that arrives on the horizon? It's a devourer of tetras, a bluegill! The tetras flee away from the bluegill, hoping they can survive elsewhere. The tetra then decides to wonder, is escape possible for it? Probably not, as the giant catfish swims by it, devouring a zander. The tetra then realizes, if they can get big enough, they too can become kings of the swamp. Sadly for most tetras, they never make it that far. But this one has not given up hope yet. As it dodges a battle between a crab and a bluegill, the tetra then swims straight up, hoping for a better tomorrow. It avoids getting eaten by two bluegills. The perfect opportunity when it was trying to eat one of its brothers. But sadly, a bluegill has its eyes on this tetra. Will the tetra ever get away? The tetra is swimming towards a nearby tunnel, considering going in, unaware of the danger yet. But we can assure you, the bluegill has found it. The tetra swims away, but leaving behind a scent trail for the other fish to follow, without noticing that its pursuer is still close behind. As the bluegill then devours the tetra in a disgusting array, there leaves nothing left, as tetras are also food for other fish, as we see here. Another bait fish that's eating the tetra like a crunchy bag. But then, there are always bigger fish, such as this. As this fish swims along through the tunnels with no worries in its little mind, it swims looking around to eat tetras and other prey fish, possibly even the bluegills that have eaten both these fish. As it swims around, it bonks into the rocks, wondering, why am I stuck here? What have I done to deserve this? But then it finally finds the outside, and decides to finally swim out there, catching a glimpse of what it will be like. Sadly, sometimes these glimpses can be short-lived, but this fish has found a massive amount of meat near its noggin. It only takes 2 bites, worried that if it eats any more, it'll become too fat to keep swimming away from apex predators. Bouncing its head back off of the walls, it decides, what if I just stay in this cave? But then goes after smaller little tiny crustaceans and bugs that live in the swamp, as they are delicacies, little treats for this swimming fish. The fish almost gets itself stuck on land, but instead attracts a predator, an alligator gar. The gar gives chase and is not giving up. He almost has it by the tail fins. The gar is still swimming after, its jaw nudging against the tail fin of this fish. The fish then flees, but breaches itself, hoping to breach the gar, the much bigger fish, but alas, to no avail. As this epic chase is going on, the fish wonders, why have I done this? Why do I deserve this? As it takes a nibble of what could be its last meal, a simple worm, the fish swims between branches, but because it got too close to the branches, got eaten by the alligator gar. Unlike the gar, there's other predatory fish that spend their time just eating on the bottom, such as the carp. But as this fish, it feeds off the carps, bugs, and pests that bother them. This little bait fish has very short time living, as bigger fish find it a delicacy. But because it protects the carp from pests and parasites, it is allowed to stay amongst them without worry. It is only when another fish, unlike the carp, comes in, is there really any threat. Ah, the bluegill, a predator of that little bait fish. The bluegill loves tetras, as we have already seen, but it also loves the taste of the little bait fish. But tetras are sometimes hard to catch. So the bluegill uses its big buggy eyes as the bluegill devours the big chunk of meat that the tetra somehow spawns out of its little body. The bluegill then dives down towards a crab, trying to steal its food from it, with success. This bluegill then decides to eat little bugs, like the tetra, for it itself is a bait fish. Again, it steals from the crab, knowing it's an easy thing to do. The crab seems annoyed at this. The bluegill then finds a baby fish with super big eyes, just like it. It worries that this little fish will be voted to be the most bug-eyed fish in the swamp. The bluegill, jealous of this, decides to devour the little fish before any competition can happen. The bluegill then takes and steals another fish's meal. Even though this bluegill is the size of that other bait fish, bigger ones have been known to feast on those fish. Ah, the raptor. The raptor is one of the strangest fish here in Shrek's swamp. Some think it was caused because of Donkey drinking out of this water, that it mutated some of these fish. As some dragons are magical, and the kisses of dragons are also magical. The raptor, full of teeth and viciousness, swims around looking to see what it can devour. Most live in groups of up to 2 to 3 to 5, but this solitary raptor seeks out food to show that it is the best at catching. As such, it devours the prey fish quickly with its giant oversized jaw. As it zooms around the swamp, it seeks for more prey. It zooms around almost anywhere, waiting for its perfect chance to get a big meal. It hopes to eat the small fish, but it wants to avoid the conflict between a xander and a crab down below. If it gets caught in the middle, it will die. As it swims over the bones of an apex predator, it sees its brethren and decides to try to steal a bite of one of its other comrades' food. It then sees its competition and doesn't know what to do with its life. As some fish take away all the prey easily. and are not bullied by documentary people like me. A Xander, a vicious fish that made short work of the raptor. And a tetra gets to feast on what would have been a raptor's next meal. And as such, the bluegill steals almost all of the food for itself, and it might eat the tetra afterwards. Ah, the piranha, a staple in rivers of the Amazon, but an also staple of Shrek's swamp. As this piranha emerges out of its tunnel, it realizes it is hungry, but it's a dangerous world out here. So the piranhas decide to team up for a short time to devour a tetra quickly, but danger is always lurking nearby. Sometimes it comes from above, sometimes from below, other times right in front of you. As the piranhas enjoy their little bait fish snack, a bluegill zooms by hoping to steal part of the prey. The smaller piranha does not care for such thieves, but instead chases the fish faster than the bluegill can keep up, thus getting most of the kill. But an alligator gar decides to intervene, devouring both their kill and one of its comrades. The scent of hurt fish attract a lot of predators in the swamp. The piranha is no exception to being attracted by it. As the alligator guard devours fish above it, the piranha then decides if it could steal part of this kill, taking the raptor's head with it. But as it's being distracted by a raptor, the alligator guard pays no heed yet. The piranha then decides it can't have enough of a dead raptor, so it goes after a live one, hoping that it will finally have a substantial meal worth eating. Piranha then breaches the water to look the documenter in the face, like, really bro, why are you here? And as such, it goes back to eating its delicious little niblets of fish, hoping not to be eaten by something bigger in these waters. The gar still swims overhead, so the piranha stays low and towards the bottom, hoping to avoid detection, using its camouflage as a natural deterrent to becoming prey itself. As the piranha enters the tunnel, it looks about, looking for food, wondering when its next meal will come. It sees a tetra get attacked by a crab, and decides to steal the kill. The crab jumps at the piranha. The piranha retaliates by biting into the face of the crab, ripping it off slowly and painfully. The crab fighting back with its big meaty claw, hoping to try to stay alive. The battle ensues between sharp jaws, but the alligator gar swims by, waiting to see who would be the victor before launching its own attack on the now bleeding piranha. The piranha makes it out, but not unscathed, looking like a nice tenderloin. The piranha itself swims away, hoping not to become prey itself. It sticks to the bottom of the cave, hoping that predators stay towards the top and pass by without notice. The piranha rapidly heals, like an X-Men, so that it, too, can survive long enough to become an apex predator. It even attacks a Xander, but a Xander is not one to mess with. The Xander is a beastly fish, swimming around with its dorsal fin spiked up. This fish, with its streamlined body, has taken many raptors' lives and piranhas. This fish, though, is not only keen on eating fish that are medium-sized, but it also eats tetras as a favorite little snack. Much like how people eat marshmallows, the Xander will eat tetras the same way. The Xander swims through these murky waters with the perfect camouflage of being brown, with a white underbelly that matches the upper levels of the swamp. It then swims through the tunnels looking for small prey that it can devour. Hearing a crunching sound, it decides to intervene and take all that was partaking of the activity. The Xander, with its streamlined body, can swim past the roots with no problem. And as it swims around, it seeks for delicious small prey fish that which it can devour in these tunnels. Sadly, with no avail, the Xander keeps swimming on through the tunnel, hoping that some prey will appear. Thus, it has found a sturgeon. A sturgeon was laying wait near the water's bottom, hoping to get some food from the cave. But the Xander noticed it immediately with its adaptive eyes. Its eyes adapted to allow it to see in these dark, murky tunnels that are almost as brown as Shrek's toilet water. Then again, this is Shrek's swamp, so it may as well flush out here. Luckily, the Xander does not know this, and hopefully no one will ever tell it that it is swimming in something that could be disgusting. The alligator gar, one of the most beastly fish, with its wide mouth that mimics an alligator's jaw, its snout full of sharp teeth. This streamlined predator eats its way to the top tier list of all the prey fish in the swamp, possibly just below the catfish. The alligator gar is speeding quick, and it devours tetras in one gulp. As it chases a tetra with its mouth wide open, it snaps, hoping it can get the tail fin between its jaws. But once it does, it is over for the tetra. The gar then sits in one place, waiting, wondering what's next on the menu, as it snips a crab in only 3 easy bites. It stares at the documentary maker like he's a lunatic, before continuing on its onslaught of eating crustaceans. The alligator gar swims on to enjoy another meal. The sturgeon, a fish that seeks food out on the bottom. As it shuffles through the seaweeds, it is seeking for delicious food in the cave. Its body covered in plates, small little plate discs that help protect it. It uses its 2 little whiskers to find food. Even though there's a massive steak near its body, it chooses something else. As these 2 giant pieces of meat are nearby, it finally decides it's gonna partake in this delicious feast. What could have died here? What could have been big enough and strong enough to produce these? And another question is, what killed it? These questions the sturgeon does not care to answer. It could have been the raptors, or a team of attack between the raptors and the crabs. The sturgeon then is getting attacked by what could have made these, the giant catfish. The catfish, one of the mightiest predators there is. The catfish itself swallows most of its prey whole. Except for the catfish was no match for an alligator gar. Which, even though the catfish is the boss of the swamp, that alligator gar was too OP. Thank you for this documentary. And may you have learned something new about Shrek's swamp. Thank you.